All right, so here we have oak barrels. In our champagne house, we use it especially to keep our reserve wines. So those nice wines helping us to correct the default of a year which has not been so good. But those 4 barrels are used differently because in it we have red wine. In our champagne house, we are producing also still wine, wines we are calling in the region Coteaux Champenois. We can do red wine or white wine, and in our champagne house we do both of it. Here we have a vat. That vat is especially used for the first fermentation. The first fermentation is obtained thanks to the yeast. The yeast is eating the sugar and transforming it into alcohol by chemical reaction. In our champagne house, we only use the natural yeast. I mean the yeast which are naturally present on the skin of the grape. When it's melted with the juice in the press, it's tucking on the sugar, and after here we obtain the first fermentation in 2 weeks, 2 weeks and a half approximately. It's very important for us, the natural process. We are also working the vineyard in that sense. I mean, we are trying to do a sustainable wine harvest, which means using the less chemical product to respect the most possible the environment. It's a bit different than bio wines because bio wines will always put in advance the nature. As a contrary, a sustainable wine growing and wine harvest is always putting in advance the product, which means if certain years we need to use chemical product, unfortunately we will. We now enter the cellar of the house. So that cellar, as you can see, is not as deep as you can have cellars in Reims or Épernay, because the village basically has been totally destroyed during the First World War. From that village we defended Reims, so 95% of the village has been destroyed, and cellar as well. So when we rebuild it, the cellar, we did it pretty much fastly, and we especially use metal thing, thinking that we could have another war, and they pretty much think well, because unfortunately we had then a second conflict. But basically that cellar is receiving everything we need to have in a cellar. And we also have in that cellar bottles are sleeping, but during 3-4 weeks they are working a lot. They are creating the famous foam, famous bubble of champagne. It's created in 3 to 4 weeks. We call it the frothing. And during that period, we have a lot of, we can have a lot of problem, especially considering explosion of bottles, because inside the bottle of champagne, we usually say we have the pressure of 2 tires of car, and a glass can resist a certain pressure. Once that pressure is done, the bottle is exploding. So sometimes during 3 to 4 weeks you can have explosion in the cellar. It can make a lot of noise, but we are not losing so many bottles as you could think. So here we have an example of one of the many specialties we have in the house. Those oak barrels are in the house for more than 30 years. They were already used by the grandfather of Roger Coulon to create the blending of our prestige bottle called Les Coteaux de Valier. So basically, before bottling the wine, the Chardonnay, which is 80% the total blending of that bottle, spend 1 year in that oak barrel, and after we bottle it, and the bottle will spend 10 to 11 years in the cellar. Funny story about that blending is it's exactly the same blending that the grandfather of Roger Coulon was doing. The only thing it changes in the rate of sugar. The rate of sugar 30 years ago were much more higher than it is now. It was about 30 grams, and now it's more 4 or 5 grams. But barrels are exactly the same that has been used before. The only thing we change is the circle around it. But otherwise it's exactly the same, and the method used to do that wines is also exactly the same. For instance, to stuck the lees down the barrel, we are still using eggs, for instance. So here we are arrived in a place we call le Clos des Terres Soudées. In that family house, which is an old farm, we are trying here to offer the most complete wine tourism product. I mean, we can organize here a visit of the cellar, I already showed you. We can organize special workshop dedicated to how to taste, how to associate food and champagne, and etc. We also have a restaurant room where we can welcome about 50 people to organize a meal or dinner with your family, with your company, etc. We can also organize seminar, business meetings here, as we have two different rooms. And at the second floor, probably starting around October, November 2012, we will offer 5 bedrooms as a bed and breakfast. So that is something that people are looking for in the region, sleeping in the wine growers. So they will be very much more close to the wine grower. So then we can offer them a tour, explain them more deeply how to taste. This is something that people are really looking for now in the region.